Today I'm flying Bali to Sydney in Garuda business class. This is what the Indonesian carrier is like for the 6-hour journey. Our flight is scheduled for just after 11 p.m, so we arrive at the airport right around 8, and after checking in, dropping our bags and clearing security, it was time to hit the lounge. Today we're visiting the Garuda Indonesia lounge, and to be fair, even when I'm travelling with a different airline, I opt to pay to access this lounge. I think it's probably the best at Denpasar Airport. Ample seating, some semi-private spaces, and good enough food. After some time spent relaxing, it was then time to head to the gate. This is where things take a turn. Although the flight was scheduled for an 11:25 p.m. departure, boarding didn't commence until 11:31. Not a major issue in itself, but something we witnessed during this time was rather concerning. Among the crowd of nearly 287 other passengers was a visibly disabled gentleman who was clearly distressed and struggling to stand in the long queue. Despite the presence of multiple ground staff, he was left entirely on his own with no offer of support or assistance. As we waited in the business line to board, he ended up beside us in the economy line trying to manage by himself. After observing his condition worsen, we gently offered to help. At first he declined, but then eventually accepted. We quietly notified the crew, who then brought a wheelchair and assisted him onto the aircraft. What was troubling was that the Garuda ground crew had clearly noticed him earlier. They were watching the same situation unfold as we were, yet took no action until prompted. It felt like a pretty serious lapse in a basic duty of care. Once on board, we flagged the situation with the flight crew and asked if they could kindly check on him. Over the next 20 minutes, several staff approached us confused, mistakenly believing we were the ones needing assistance or unsure about where he was seated. Eventually, my partner walked down the aisle himself to locate the gentleman and check if he was okay. The lack of coordination and follow-through from the crew was disappointing, and it was a rather disappointing start to this journey. But I digress, and making our way on board this flight, our seats are 7 Delta and Golf, the second row of business class in this 6-row cabin. Despite the confusion surrounding the other gentleman I mentioned earlier, the crew were friendly pre-departure, serving a welcome drink and a hot towel service. The business class product from Garuda is certainly dated and definitely showing some wear and tear, but it's comfortable enough and a lay-flat bed for this overnight trip. There are 24 business class seats aboard this aircraft, all with a 21.2-inch width, personal USB and power outlets, and a large 15-inch touchscreen entertainment system. The seat is controlled with this little panel in the armrest, and there was a little amount of storage within these cupboards. There was an amenity kit waiting for us with slippers included, and this is a look at the menu for the trip. Without much further delay, we were pushing back and taking off. With a flight time of just under 6 hours, I was keen to maximize my rest on this overnight flight, but did still want to eat a little something. I opted for the nachos, which look like a dog's dinner, but were actually a very nice snack. I asked for water when I ordered the food, and when the meal arrived, I was asked again if I wanted a drink. I reiterated I just wanted water, and the flight attendant, who was very friendly, said she would be right back with it. She never returned, which I did find frustrating. I asked 3 times for that water that never arrived. Garuda provides these small stickers to place around your seat, including a do not disturb option, which I used, opting not to be woken for breakfast. On top of that, the crew also came around individually to ask whether you'd like to be woken for the meal, which I appreciated as a thoughtful touch. Unfortunately, despite all this, the entire cabin was woken up about 2 hours before landing with one of the loudest announcements I've ever heard, informing us that breakfast was about to be served. It completely defeated the purpose of both the stickers and the pre-check. Either don't ask passengers if they want to be woken or skip the announcement. It was unnecessarily disruptive and quite honestly frustrating. In addition, the captain made several announcements in Indonesian throughout the flight that were delivered in such an urgent and loud tone, I felt as though something was seriously wrong. It woke me up in a panic, only to realise that the crew and other passengers were completely unfazed when I looked around me, so I went back to sleep. No word of a lie, this man was yelling over the announcement system. It was a strange experience and quite disruptive for anyone trying to rest. The volume and tone of the announcements were unnecessarily alarming, but Winding down for sleep, a quick visit to the bathroom, which was nothing spectacular for business class, I then started to get comfortable for rest. There was a pillow and a blanket, both of nice quality, but no mattress topper, which meant the seat, when converted to a bed, was rather firm. Another pain point is that there were no individual air vents, which meant the cabin got extremely warm waking us up. Combined with all the announcements and attempts to serve breakfast, it was a pretty interrupted sleep. But despite all of that, I managed to stay in somewhat of an interrupted sleep until about about 15 minutes before landing. This wasn't the best flight, and to be upfront, I found the crew rather disappointing when compared to the exceptional crew we had on our outbound flight across to Bali.